Now let's put this into practice and let's talk about how to mix SSIS expressions with variables so that we can customize our packages at runtime. So what I'm going to do is I have a couple of different text files and I want to take these text files and store their rows inside of a SQL Server database. So you can see each one of these text files has a single row and it's just two columns, one because it's from file one, and then this one, sorry, would have two because it's from file two, and three from file three. That way we don't click over there again. Four from file four. So we want to load all of these files up and store all of their rows in a SQL Server table. And I've gone ahead and created the SQL Server table. It has two columns that match the text file columns, ID and the data. And ID is going to be the primary key and the data is just going to be that from file one little bit that was stored in here. Right now the table is empty. So let's create ourselves a project and let's load it up. Let's pick a file and we'll load it up using the bulk insert. So come over here, grab a bulk insert task. I've done a little bit of hard work for us already. Let's create our destination first. So let me go to the learnitfirst.com database. And the destination table was called processed data. So you can see that matches the one we just looked at in the SQL Server. And the hard work that I've already done is that I have created a format file for use with this already. So my format file simply says that column one is in this position and it maps to a SQL Server integer, and then column two in the text file is a string and it maps to the invar char in the second column of the table. So we need to just wire it up to a file, so let's make the connection to document one. And thus far this is just your plain old bulk insert task. If what I've done kind of confused you here, then you might want to go back to chapter 4 and take a look at the videos on working with the bulk insert task, because I didn't do anything unusual. If you need to learn how to create format files, go check out chapter 4 and working with the bulk insert. So I'm going to say OK, and just to make sure, let's go ahead and run this and let's cross our fingers and hope we get green. So yay, we do. And sure enough, it loads the data from file one. So let's go ahead and clear that out because we want to be processing this in a couple of different ways. Now, let's come back over here. Now, if we want to change the source file that gets loaded by the bulk insert task, we're in the same thing that we were last video. If you remember, what decides the part that gets loaded? Is it the bulk insert task that decides the source file, or is it the file manager, the connection manager? Well, it's the connection manager down here. The connection manager says, I will send you this particular source file. So if you want to change the name of the source, then go down to the connection manager. Just like we did in the previous video, I would go down here, I would go to its properties, and then under the expressions, I would change the connection string to be whatever else that I wanted it to be. Like I want it to be C:\\/ process these files / document 2.txt, because that maps up with this file. So you could take a look, evaluate it, make sure that it comes back successful. Remember that we have to put 2 backslashes to output a single backslash. And so now I'm changing it on the fly. I'm changing it at runtime. And let's go ahead and execute our package now. And our bulk insert runs successfully. We take a look at the select, and it loaded up the data from file 2. Very cool. Okay, now let's delete this. Let's make it a little more dynamic. Let's say that we don't quite know the folder that this is always in. We know the file names, for example, but the folder may change from time to time. Right now it's C:/ process these files. The next time it runs, it could be on the J drive, it could be on the Q drive, it could be in a different folder. We want to be able to change the folder using a variable. So let's go create a package level variable, and we'll call this path to files. And it's going to contain string data. And right now we'll populate it with C, process these files. And we'll end it with a backslash here. So we're going to allow the caller to change the value of the variable if they need to. And we're going to talk about package configurations and such later on, how that can actually be achieved. So now in our bulk insert task, what we have to do in the connection manager is we have to use this path to files variable. So let's go back over here, go to the properties of it, go to our expression builder, and instead of hard coding in the path, we want to take advantage of our new variable path to files. So we say, okay, we come down here, drag, and it ends in a backslash, so I can just say document3.txt, for example. And when we evaluate it, it takes the value of path to files that you see right here, and it simply parses that out so that we get the full-blown value. Okay, you with me, right? I mean, we're not 100% dynamic. We still are hard coding document 3, but now we're loading up number 3, and sure enough, it works, and it pulled in the data from file 3. But what it allows us to do now is we can process these files. We could move this, we could change the name to new name. And if we didn't go back and change our bulk insert task, then we're going to get an error that said cannot load the file, cannot bulk load because the file could not be found. So what we need to do to change this package now would be to go to the path to files variable, change that to C:/ new name, end it with a slash, and load it up. Move you out of the way, fire this guy off, should turn green here fairly quickly, and again we've loaded up file 3. Okay, so this is the basics. Now I know this isn't really like hardcore how to loop through every single file in a folder and load them up, but this is what you're going to build upon to do this later on. So now you kind of see an idea of how to edit the bulk insert task. You change the connection manager down here if you want to change the source file. If you want to change, though, we'll finish with this. If you want to change the destination table, now here's the question for you. So let's say here, the question. To change the destination table in an expression, do you change the task or the connection manager? This is maybe a little bit unexpected for some of you, and the correct answer is the task. Okay? The task has destination table name. The connection manager for a SQL Server connection only specifies, let's just write this out, the connection manager specifies server database, initial catalog is what it's referred to, and authentication. It does not specify what table that you want to access, what command you want to run. That's going to be at the task level. So since we're changing the destination table here in the bulk insert task, we need to actually go to the task level. So I would highlight this, I would hit F4, I would go to my expressions over here, and I would change this particular property. You can actually see it right here, the destination table name property mapping up to the processed data. Cool. Change it on the fly. Just use an expression to change the destination table name to whatever the table name is that you want it to be. Obviously, the table needs to have been created and exist before, or else you would get a table does not exist error. But it's just that easy. There's really not a whole lot to it here, right? So what we're going to do, I'm going to actually leave for the time being here. What we'll do in Chapter 6, we're going to come back with a real-world example that shows us how to do a for each loop. And we're going to simply go in here, go to a collection. We're going to go to the for each file. We're going to choose whatever the folder is, new name. And then we're going to loop through every text file and get only the name and the extension. And then we're going to drag the bulk insert task, and we're going to have it load every one of these up. But we're going to have to honor, in the for each loop, we're going to have to honor this variable. The path to files isn't going to be what we type in right here. We want path to files to actually be read from the variable. So we'll have to assign that with an expression. We'll make a much more dynamic package. We're going to hold off on that one though until Chapter 6, because we have a whole chapter of how to do real world package examples. So for right now, you've got enough to kind of get a basic idea of how you're going to modify the bulk insert task for destinations, for dynamic sources. And when we come back in Chapter 6, we'll talk about how to finish this particular example.